You know what it is. That's right. It's time to talk money with your money nerd and financial coach. Now, tighten those purse strings and open those ears. It's the Money Talk with Tiff podcast.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Tiffany's Take, where I answer your questions right here on the podcast. So if you would like your question answered or you want to suggest a topic, go to www.moneytalkwitht.com/Ask Tiffany. So this is actually a continuation from last Tuesday, where I started going over the list of 32 ways to make progress that I found on social media. I did the first 16 in that episode. So if you didn't catch that, definitely go back and listen. So this episode, I'll go over the last 16 ways to make progress. To quickly recap, number 1 was wake up early. 2, read daily. 3, eat well. 4, love yourself. 5, judge less. 6, be yourself. 7, set goals. 8, plan your day. 9, positive attitude. 10, have purpose. 11, find inspiration. 12, help others. 13, build network. 14, save money. 15, automate. 16, delegate. Now, in the last episode, I added some color to each of those, where I talked about different tools and tricks that I use in order to stick to a lot of those. So definitely check out that episode. I'll link it in the show notes. But let's go ahead and continue our conversation. So number 17, track your finances. Now, y'all know this speaks directly to my audience and to me. Make sure that you are tracking your finances, because that is the only way to make progress with your money in whatever way you would like to, whether it's saving more, investing more, spending more, whatever it is, you need to track what's going on. So I use YNAB for this. You need a budget. I'll make sure I have a link in the show notes for that. But that is my go-to budgeting app at the moment. I have also used Every Dollar. I have also used a myriad of different things, spreadsheets, pen and paper, the envelope method, whatever. Just make sure that you're tracking your finances. Number 18, build a brand. Now, for those listening, you're probably like, but I don't have a business and I don't want a business. But I'm not even talking about business per se. Building your personal brand is super important. And so how would you do that? Think about who you associate with. Think about what's out there on the internet about you. So Google yourself, see what brand you have already out there. Another thing that I do is I'll ask people that have known me for a while, how do you see me? What would you say are my top 3 qualities or whatever? Then you can kind of see what your brand is. Number 19, fail fast. Y'all know I talk about failing all the time. I don't look at it as failing. I look at it as learning lessons that could then propel me to go forward. So fail early and fail often is one of the mottos that I live by. If you want to do something, go ahead and do it. Don't sit there and go into analysis paralysis about, oh, what if this doesn't come out right? What if what if people don't want, what if, blah, 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 what if, you'll what if yourself to death. And so make sure you fail fast, fail early, fail often, get it out there, and then you can tweak as you go. 20, interact. Make sure you're interacting with people. You know, it's an introverts, I understand. You don't really like interacting with people. It fills your cup to the brim really quickly, but just make sure you're having some interaction with people. It can really help you make progress, because sometimes you never know if you have just a conversation with someone, they're like, oh, I know how to help you with that. Or, oh, I know someone that can help you, whatever. You don't know unless you interact. And interaction could be just sending a quick text message, saying, hey, or a quick phone call, DM, whatever. Just try to interact with people every so often. 21, learn skills. I am a lifelong learner. I love learning. And that is one thing that I feel has helped me in both my career and now as a business owner. I love learning new skills. I was even thinking the other day, and y'all don't laugh at me, but I was like, oh, I would love to go back to school. I know you probably think it again, Tiffany, but to learn a trade. Like, I would love to learn, like, for instance, my daughter's dad is currently in school going for plumbing. And when he's talking to me about the different things that he's learned in class, I'm like, oh, that actually sounds interesting. So, like, just doing something completely different than what I'm used to, but learning that new skill. Will I use it later on? Who knows? Will it be worth it? Who knows? But just adding different skill sets to my tool belt is extremely helpful. Not too long ago, I took up violin lessons, something completely different. Never picked up a string instrument a day in my life. But I said, you know what? Let me try to learn the violin. Now, I realize it is not my thing, but I wouldn't have realized that if I didn't try it. So always try new things and learn new skills. 22, invest. And not just invest your money, which of course you need to do as well, but invest in yourself, invest in others. Like invest can mean so many different things, but make sure that you're investing in all of those things because that will help you make progress towards whatever goals you have. 23, journal. Now, this is something that I've been doing on and off for a long, long time. And I just posted a social media post a couple of weeks ago or last week, whenever, with a journal entry that I had from last year, right? And one way that I like to journal is I'll just take a notebook, I'll Google a prompt, write down the prompt, and then I'll give myself a couple of minutes. I put on a timer to respond to that prompt. And I do that because that allows me to write down what is top of mind, not to overthink what I'm writing down. And therefore it comes out more authentic. And so I highly recommend that technique. Also with the Apple update on, if you have an iPhone, they have a new journal app. Highly recommend checking that out. It's super cool. It actually pays attention to like what pictures you take and where you are and things like that. And then it'll give you prompts based on those things, which is a little creepy when you think about it, but it's so cool when you're wanting to journal. So it'll say, oh, you had a conversation with this person. Do you want to write about that? Do you want to write about how you feel or what you talked about, whatever? And so it's really helpful with those journal prompts because I usually struggle with what do I write about and then get stuck on that and then never do it. So with that journal app, it really helps. Number 24, meditate. Now, this is something that I have scheduled on my calendar every single morning. So we talked about making sure you're planning out your day in the last episode, but meditation is super helpful. And meditation can look like many different things. I usually use the Peloton app to do those meditations, but you can also, reading your Bible or reading whatever religious belief you have, reading that book, Quran, whatever it is, that can be a form of meditation. Praying could be a form of meditation. There's so many different ways you can meditate. Just sitting still and calming your mind is a form of meditation. You don't have to have a formal, someone telling you, oh, breathe in and breathe out. You don't need that. If you can just sit and say, okay, I'm going to be still for just 5 minutes. That is a form of meditation. So don't overthink what meditation is. Just do. And it is super helpful with clearing your mind and making you have a productive day. I usually do it in the morning. Sometimes I'll do it in the evening if I feel myself getting overwhelmed as well. So, just play it by ear. Number 25, get a mentor, y'all. I've talked about mentors on this podcast a few times, but mentorship is super helpful for you at whatever stage you are in your life. I have been utilizing mentors since I had first graduated from college, and it has been super helpful. So highly recommend getting a mentor, and only you can determine who that mentor is or what that mentor looks like to you. It could be someone to mentor you in life, to mentor you in relationship, to mentor you in career and business, whatever it is. But I highly suggest having a mentor, at least one. You can always have multiple, but at least one mentor in your life that can help you. Number 26, think big. Now, this is one thing that I do struggle with at times. Sometimes I'm like, Tiffany, you think way too small. You need to think bigger. So thinking big is super helpful because you have this big, huge goal that you're trying to work towards. And at the moment, it may seem like, oh, I'll never get this, or, oh, this is something that, won't come anytime soon. But you'll be surprised once you write that thing down, how fast you can get to it, because then you are living your life intentionally. You are working towards that goal at all times. And once you do that, it's going to be really hard not to get there. Imagine working on something every day for years. It's going to be really hard not to get to whatever that thing is. When I first started the podcast, I was like, as long as 1 or 2 people listen. And there's been episodes where nobody listened when they first came out, right? But I never would have thought that it would get to the point where it is now, where I'm getting thousands and thousands of downloads every month. And, each episode is getting hundreds of listens. I would have never thought that it would get that far. But when I started, I said, you know what? I just want to have this podcast. And as I continued in it, I started thinking bigger and bigger and bigger. And lo and behold, it started happening. So always think big about whatever it is you have going on. 27, be productive. Now, being productive is relative because it depends on whatever your goals are. So I'm not going to say, oh, don't scroll social and all that stuff. Because what if, like, for instance, in my case, social is part of my business. And so scrolling social is actually being productive at times. Now, I'm not going to lie. There are times where it's not productive and I'm doing a little too much scrolling. And so that's why I say use your discretion when I say be productive, because it could look like different things for different people, but you know what your productivity looks like and you know the areas where you can be a little more productive. So just make an effort to be a little more productive. Let's say if social media or if Netflix is one of the things that throws you off from your goals, then set a timer. Set a limit. And even if you cut down, like, let's say 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, that's 30 minutes to an hour that you can put towards something a little more productive. So be creative in the different ways you do that. But number 27 was be productive. 28, do more. So that kind of falls in line with be productive, because if you're being productive, then you're cutting out the unproductive tasks and you're doing more. So do more. And even just, I tell my clients and colleagues all the time, just 1% extra every day and you'll get to that goal. So even if right now you're only saving, let's say 1% of your income, then if you add an extra 1%, you're at 2. If you add another 1%, you're at 3, so on and so forth until you get to maybe a 10% savings goal or whatever. But you can always just do a little bit more. This morning, I decided I wanted to record podcast episodes. And at first I was only going to do 1, but then I ended up doing like 3 or 4. So there's always little instances throughout the day where you can do more. So be cognizant of when those times are, and then just do a little extra. 29, spend wisely. Now, y'all hear me say this on the podcast all the time. My intro and outro guy says it. Spend wisely by spending less than you make, okay? So make sure that whatever it is you're spending on contributes to a goal, contributes to your well-being, contributes to something. In my opinion, that is spending wisely. So it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I need to spend less on clothes or I need to cut out this thing that I really, really enjoy. No, it just means, okay, if we're going to spend money on clothes, what goal is that getting us to? Is it a self-care goal? Is it a love yourself goal, make yourself feel better goal? And if it's out of control, then don't just cut it out completely. Maybe just cut it back some. So that way you can still get towards whatever the goal is. Because you have to realize financial goals are only one type of goal. There are many other goals that you also need in your life as well. So you have to find that balance of where can my financial goals, my personal goals, my health goals, my spiritual goals, all of these different goals can all live in unison. And that is when you are the most happy. Number 30, educate yourself. So I kind of discussed this a little earlier and learn skills, but educating yourself is so important. And that's why you're here on the podcast, right? You're educating yourself every time I release an episode. You're educating yourself every time you have a conversation about money with someone else. You're educating yourself every time you read a blog post. You're educating yourself every time you go to Google something, right? You're educating yourself. So continuously do that and you'll learn things that you've never learned before, and then also be able to teach other people. 31, have ambition. Now, that is very relative. Everybody is ambitious about different things, but I will say, if you have some motivation, either whether it be intrinsic or extrinsic, and when I say intrinsic, that means motivation that comes from within. When I say extrinsic, that means motivation that comes from outside sources. Regardless of what it is, make sure you know what that motivation is. Make sure you know what you're ambitious about, and then make sure that you keep that ambition going by dialing into what those motivations are. So does that make sense? Your motivations lead your ambition. And so if you ever get low on ambition, you can always fall back on, okay, what is that motivation that's keeping me ambitious? So I hope that made sense. I hope that didn't go over your head, but I tried to break it down as simply as possible. And then the last but not least, number 32, just start now. You know, that is a rule that I live by. Just do it, y'all. Act like Nike. Just do it. Just start now. Whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, just start now. After I finish this episode, remember I talked about in the last episode, eating well. I'm going to go see what I can whip up healthy. After this episode, I'm going to go do a workout, a little body movement after this episode, because I just need to start now. So I'm not only talking to you, I'm talking to myself as well. These 32 ways to make progress, I feel like it's a really comprehensive list, and it is mostly how I live my life, and I am always making progress on a daily basis. I tell people, even when I'm taking a nap, even when I'm practicing self-care, I am making progress, y'all, because that goes towards a goal. Whether it's a goal for self-care, whether it's a goal of getting more sleep. I actually have a sleep tracker where I keep track of my sleep debt as well. Everything I do is working towards a goal. So keep that in mind. And hopefully this list of 32 ways to make progress was helpful for you. So if you enjoyed this content, let me know that you enjoyed it, and then I'll make more like it. So go to www.moneytalkwitht.com/ask Tiffany, and I will be more than happy to oblige. But until next time, make sure you're rating, reviewing, and subscribing wherever you're listening. It helps other people find us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you for listening, joining, and being a part of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast this week. You can check Tiff out every Thursday for a new Money Talk podcast. But if you just can't wait until next week, you can listen to previous podcast episodes at moneytalkwitht.com or follow Tiff on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. Until next time, spend wise by spending less than you make. A word to the money wise is always sufficient.